A few months back, I made a video here on the channel about how I started writing for Bleacher Report, how I got into wrestling writing, and how you can do the same. So I thought it'd only be fitting to not only talk about how you can get into wrestling writing this week, but how you can get into wrestling radio. Now, the reason I bring this up, now it was 3 years ago this week that I started my very own podcast, along with Ben Gartland, a very good friend of mine, entitled Spoilers on Blog Talk Radio. Now, first and foremost, if you're looking to get into wrestling radio, Blog Talk Radio is a very good place to start. It's a very free service. I mean, you can pay it if you want. If you put money into it, which I know a lot of people do not want to do, as a free service, I mean, I haven't used it in a long time, but as a free service, you get 30 to 45 minutes of, your own screen time, radio and all that kind of stuff. You can have people call in, your own intro, all that kind of stuff. And that's without paying. Putting money into it requires you to promote it, get more listeners, get a longer time to talk on the radio, all that kind of stuff. And it streams online at blogtalkradio.com. I know a lot of people that used it. When I first started using it back in 2011, 3 years ago this week, it was a very good service. And especially for people that don't like to talk a lot, because I know a lot of people, I do my show nowadays, and I'll get to that in a minute, WrestleRant Radio, that goes an hour long, if not longer than that. A lot of people don't really have much to talk about, especially if they're doing it by themselves to start it off. So they usually only talk for 15, 20, 30 minutes. So that span of time that Blog Talk Radio gives you as a starter without putting money into it is great. So I'll say that first because a lot of people always ask me. I would probably say the most common question people ask me is how I started writing, how I started for Bleacher Report. But the second most common question I'm usually asked is in regards to wrestling radio. So Blog Talk Radio, for anyone wondering, is a great place to start. And that's without putting money into it. If you're willing to do so, there's a lot more options. There's a lot more stuff that's available to you. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, after we started doing that podcast, it was me and Ben Gartland just shooting the shit on wrestling every single week. We had guests on, we had interviews and stuff like that. I interviewed Goldust on there a couple of years ago, which was an absolute surreal experience. Goldust is a very good guy, and I really appreciated him allowing me to interview him on the show. So that was great. We've interviewed a lot of people from WWE. Michael Tarver, former Nexus member, we interviewed him on Spoilers a number of years back. So that was fun. I also got into Save Us GSM, which I promoted here on the channel before. Anyone familiar with my work from past years is familiar with my old channel, with my old radio show, Save Us GSM from pw247.net. Also a very good radio station, wrestling site in general. Definitely check them out. They're always looking for more contributors, more people to start up a show on their site. So definitely check them out if you haven't already as well. But I did Save Us GSM from the summer of 2012 to the summer of 2013. And when I got here to campus, I started doing WrestleRant Radio by myself. I wanted to do it all by myself because all the past shows I've ever done, Spoilers, Save Us GSM, I've always had a co-host. So I wanted to start it out doing it by myself because with a co-host sometimes it's really hit or miss. A lot of the times it's really, really fun because there's always someone to shoot the shit with. That's definitely the biggest positive. But, if they're always not reliant on you to call in and stuff like that, if you're really reliant on them to call in on time and they're busy, it's always hard to work out the schedules. Depending on how old you are, like when I started doing it in high school, I was always busy with activities and homework and projects and other shit. So, it was really hard to work out a time frame from when you're both in high school. But if you're in college or even an adult, it's a lot easier because obviously you have more time on your hands, especially if you're not working right now. So it kind of depends how old you are. But, I would definitely start out by yourself, and if you don't like it, find a co-host. That's always good. But, when I started doing WrestleRant Radio, the debut, October 8th, 2014, it was a Tuesday here on EC Radio, Endicott campus. Started talking to the lady that was in charge of the Endicott radio system, who was very, very nice. I'll probably talk about her in a future. Anyone you know can be a wrestling fan. You never know who might be a wrestling fan, I'm sorry. The video series that I do here on the channel, I'll probably feature her in one of those videos at some point in the next couple of months or so, because that was also an interesting story. But I started talking wrestling radio, started talking about wrestling here on the radio, here on the college campus, about a year ago, and it's been a lot of fun since. I started having on guests, I got a co-host. It's always fun. So definitely start out. It depends, like I said before, it really all depends on how old you are. If you're in high school and whatever else, and you want to start your own wrestling radio show, Blog Talk Radio is a very good place to start. Now, Endicott College, where I go right now, the college I'm currently at, where I'm filming this from, one of the leading reasons why I wanted to pick it was because it allowed freshmen to do the radio. Because a lot of other colleges that I visited, I know URI was one of them, that it didn't allow freshmen to be on the radio until you were a freshman, until you were a junior or senior. And that really frustrated me because going from doing radio all the time in high school to not doing it all when I was in college made no sense to me, and I really wanted the accessibility to be able to do that when I got to college. I know a lot of people who I've talked to here on the campus felt the same way, who also do radio stations, do radio shows here on the college station. So that being said, if you're going to college, you're currently in college, definitely go to a place. If you're interested in talking about wrestling on the radio, I'm sorry, I made that mistake before. Botchkari here today. But if you're interested about talking wrestling on the radio or getting your own radio show about whatever, it could be sports, politics, everything going on in the world today, it could be whatever. Definitely looking at colleges that allow you to do the radio station, that have a radio station at all, because I know a lot of colleges don't even bother with that kind of stuff, which is ridiculous. But anyway, if you're interested in doing that kind of stuff, definitely look out for a college that offers that to you, that you can get started from day one. Don't wait until junior or senior, because by that point, once you start getting the hang of it, it's going to be too late. So that's another tip as well. But radio shows are kind of going by the wayside. I mean, I said radio, I put the title of that in the title of this video. But podcasting has also come a long way in the last couple of years. Now, in terms of podcasting, I listen to maybe 4 or 5 different podcasts a week, or different episodes of a podcast a week. I listen to Stone Cold Steve Austin's, both the Tuesday and Thursday show, the Steve Austin Show and Steve Austin Unleashed. I listen to both of those on Tuesday, Thursdays. On Wednesdays and Fridays, I listen to Talk with Jericho, hosted by Chris Jericho himself. And also on Wednesdays, I listen to JR's podcast, the Ross Report, which is also very, very good. And that's all in addition to the Salamonster Sounds Off, which is run by not a wrestler, but a very avid wrestling fan, Jason Solomon. The Salamonster Sounds Off is a great show. Definitely check that out. I know a lot of people are also interested in that show, so that's an awesome wrestling podcast to listen to, and I believe he puts it up every Saturday or Sunday. So definitely check out that show if you haven't already either. But yeah, there's a lot of different podcasts out there, and I've heard people say before that the podcast world is oversaturated, especially when it comes to wrestling, because everyone wants to get their thoughts out there. If you're not doing it on YouTube, then you're probably doing it in a podcast form, and it's really simple. I mean, radio shows, those are a little bit harder because you got to find like a right time to do it. You got to find out like a 5:30 on a Tuesday. If you do it like, I feel like doing it today and feel like doing it tomorrow, it's not going to work because you got to find consistency with it. You know what I mean? That's the difference between a radio show and a podcast, because a podcast, you don't have to go to any radio room. You don't have to get some fancy equipment. You could just take your iPhone, which I'm filming this video with right now, use the voice memos and just, record something. It's very good quality. I mean, as long as you're not outside or you're not in a location where people are talking and it's not too loud, it's perfect. I mean, just go down to a basement or the lower room or your room or something like that where it's very, very quiet, and you'll get great quality out of it. And then you just upload it to your computer, you transfer it to an MP3 format. It sounds complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not. And then you could just put it on any platform that you like. I mean, there's plenty of websites out there. There's Podbean. I use my own website, nextwrestling.weebly.com, but in order to put audio on there, I had to put money into it, because like I said before, a lot of people don't like to put money into whatever they're doing, Podbean, their own websites, whatever. But you have to find a platform. If you do have your own podcast, you have to find a platform to put it on. And it could very well be YouTube, where I'm putting the video right now. I mean, you could upload your podcast to YouTube, and I do that as well with WrestleRant Radio and in the excerpts of the show every week. So there's a lot of different formats and a lot of different platforms that you can use to allow your voice to be heard. And everyone wants to talk about wrestling. I mean, even the casual fans sometimes want to, give their 2 cents on whatever's happening on the wrestling world, especially if something happens. I mean, people sound off on Facebook and Twitter all the time with their thoughts in the wrestling world, writing blogs and whatever. But for some people, like myself included, that's not enough. You want to get your voice out there, you want to build your own brand and that kind of stuff. And that starts with having your own radio show, whether it be with you or with you and someone else, you're on your own, or you have someone else to talk with. It really doesn't matter. But radio shows and podcasting, either way, whichever way you go, are both great ways of getting your thoughts out there on the wrestling world or whatever. Like I said before, it doesn't even have to be about wrestling. I mean, I know this video is titled How to Get into Wrestling Radio, but it could be about sports, it could be about politics, everyday things. It really doesn't matter. It's really simple in the year of 2014. I didn't even know what a podcast was as of 2-3 years ago. But I started listening to the Salamonster Sounds Off, and then as of last December, I started listening to Jericho's podcast, Stone Cold's, JR's. A lot of great shows out there to check out. I know there's many, many more. I know Goldberg has his own show, Roddy Piper, both on Podcast One. So you can check those out if you want. I'm not really interested in those. I don't have time for them. I only have enough time to listen to the ones that I do currently. But the filming of this is perfect because I'm talking about this a couple days removed when I got the most recent iOS update, which now allows you to have their own podcast app. So I know Podcast One has their own app and it's good, but the new podcast app that Apple just came out with, the new iOS update, is excellent. You can download all your shows at once. You can listen back to it later. You can download it to your phone, listen to half of it now, half of it later. It's great. So even there, I mean, if you want to put your podcast on iTunes, I still have yet to figure out how to do that. I mean, there's ways to do it, but I just put it on my website. That's my way of getting my radio shows out there and archiving them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely if you want to start up your own podcast, which I know a lot of people do, you can start with Blog Talk Radio. If you want to do a set time and date with a radio show, it's a lot different. With radio shows, you can have people call in. You do it every day. You do it every week at the same time, the same day. Set date and time for people to come back and listen to it. It archives it, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely go back and check that out. Podcasting, like I said before, a little different. All you have to do, a lot easier too. A little different, but a lot easier. In that you can just film it on your phone, but the difference in there is that you just have to find a platform to put it on. But it's also that pretty simple in that you can always put it on YouTube or a website that you have, a blog, Podbean, whatever. So there's a lot of different ways to get your voice out there when it comes to wrestling radio and podcasting. But those are my 2 cents on that. So if you have any more questions that I did not address here, and there's probably many of them that I did not get around to talking about, you can always hit me up on Twitter at WrestleRant or Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews. Always appreciate you guys viewing. I'll be back next week with another random video blog of the week. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until then, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you guys next week.